Welcome to News West 9's West Texas View with Johnny Lou Avery.
Welcome to the West Texas View. I'm Johnny Lou Avery, and we're really pleased to have an author with us today, Loretta Fulton. Many of you remember that she was on the program about a year ago when she had just finished a book, and I brought her on because many of you knew the subject of her book, Dr. Virginia Boyd Conley, who was one of the very early women pioneer doctors, started her practice in the early 40s in Abilene. And that book was so well received that now she has come out with her second book. And this book is called Off They Went, and it's about the women pilots in the Permian Basin, West Texas, and the Big Country area. And many of you know pilots from our West Texas area that have really made a name for themselves. And Loretta got this idea to do a book about some of the women who were part of the 99s in the Abilene area. And so Loretta graduated from the University of Texas in the late 60s and immediately began a journalism career in newspaper work and freelance writing, and took early retirement in 2007, and that's when she continued her to broaden her journalism career. And Loretta, it is so wonderful to have you. Talk a little bit about your background and how you got into how you chose journalism.
Well, thank you. I was one of those lucky people that I knew, I guess, all my life what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a newspaper reporter, wanted to go into journalism, and I was fortunate that I had the opportunity to do that. I graduated from the University of Texas,
which has a great journalism school.
Well, we like to think so. Mm-hmm. I graduated in May 1969. Went to Abilene in September of that year to work at the Abilene Reporter News. And during my career, I took, as you mentioned, I took an early retirement in 2007. And in that period, I did all kinds of reporting, basically every beat that you have on a newspaper. And then I was a city editor, a regional news editor, just everything that you can do at the newspaper.
And wrote for magazines. And
yes, and then when I took the early retirement in 2007, I immediately began doing freelance writing. And since then, I have written for a number of outlets. Locally, I write for our universities, for some of their publications. I've written for the annual reports, like for the Community Foundation of Abilene, just a number of outlets. In addition to, I still write on a regular basis for the newspaper. And then I've done these two books that you mentioned, and I also have been a contributing writer to some other books that have been published.
I know that they just came out with West Texas Christmas stories.
Yes.
and other West Texas tales, and you've got chapters in that.
Yes.
But going back to your choice of your profession, did you have family members that were in the business? That were journalists?
No, I'm the only one. I'm the first, and don't know really where it came from, except that I always loved writing. When I was growing up in school, I loved to write and reading. Yes, of course, the emphasis on education was there from my parents, so I was fortunate in that respect that they always emphasized education and reading, and so I had that kind of support. But as far as the journalism career, I don't know where it came from. I just knew it was there, and that I just always loved writing. And then later I realized I just have a natural curiosity, and so that fit well into journalism, into reporting, and it just seemed like a natural way to go.
And I know that I've heard you say before that you really recommended for someone who feels like they've got the writing talent.
If you have the,
that it's a wonderful career.
It's a fabulous career. It's a continuing education. Every story.
You learn a
if
whole
I do
new...
a story today, I'll learn something new from doing that. It's a great career. meet all kinds of interesting people, hear fabulous stories, and get to write them and share them with other people.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit later about the process of the writing, but I know that people are really interested in the 2 books that you've written, because these are biographies, right. And they give it required a lot of research, and it required a lot of time-consuming interviews and those kinds of things. So talk a little bit about when you wrote the first book about Dr. Virginia Boyd Conley, who is now 100 years old, right. Still going strong.
Yes.
And so what, when you got the idea, what made you decide you could do that?
With that book, I had, like I said, I moved to Abilene in September of 1969, and I began hearing about Virginia Conley almost immediately. Mm-hmm. So I knew about her. Over the years, I got to know her and know more about the person she was, in addition to the fact that she was Abilene's first female physician. And by the time I retired, I kept thinking somebody needs to preserve Virginia Conley's story. It needs to be told, and I kept thinking that, and nobody else did, so I decided I need to be the one to do that. And so I was really driven to do that book, and she was just a natural for that.
It was a great first book, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because a lot of things just fell into place. She had a lot of the information. But the other thing about writing that book and that story was she was so popular and so well known all over the United States that you just had a built-in sales immediately for your book.
I did. That's correct.
Audience for your book.
I did.
Because when you were on here about a year ago and talked about that book, we had calls from all over the Permian Basin that remembered Virginia. And they would say, "Oh my goodness, she took my tonsils out."
I heard that comment. She took my tonsils out and she fitted me with my first pair of glasses. I heard those comments over and over again.
Well, we want to get into this second book because I love this second book. And so we're going to have to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a minute and continue this conversation. See you in just a minute.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.